guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, in today's case, I will be covering a true crime story that was suggested by one of my subscribers here on this channel. And I'm so grateful for that suggestion, thank you very much. This is a case that I've actually not heard of before. It's quite a mysterious crime case, and it is another unsolved case. So, before we get into the case, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Natalie left Carlos and Charlie's on May 29, 2005. Her whereabouts leading up to her disappearance are completely unknown. There are four major theories that have been concluded by authorities. The first theory is that findings from chats involving Duran and the sleuths claiming to purchase hotel motion to oppose the petition. A hearing was held on September 23rd, 2011, at which time probate judge Alan King ruled that Dave Holloway had met the requirements for a legal presumption of death. So at this point I just want to backtrack a little and give you guys a bit of an idea on what this guy was like. So this is now going kind of backwards. On February 10th, Paul Vandersloot, which is trans that suddenly died during a game of tennis. 2 weeks after, Duran contacted Natalie's mom claiming to know where her remains were and that he would tell her in exchange for $250,000. This was Beth's opportunity to catch him out, so she involved the FBI and lawyers. However, Duran demanded $25,000 up front. He then proceeded to lie about details of where Natalie's body was buried. As soon